You're listening to the Lean Six Sigma for Good podcast. We help you learn how Lean and Six Sigma concepts can be applied to nonprofits, NGOs, and not-for-profit organizations. Visit us at leansixsigmaforgood.com. Okay, today we've got Dr. Luke Chesla. He's a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and he's got a lot of great experience working in government, and he's got a nonprofit. And so I really wanted to reach out to talk to you about some of your work and learn a little bit more about you. So welcome, Luke.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on your show. So first and foremost, if you want a little quick bio, the basic rundown is I was a knuckle dragging Marine for over 20 years, did 20 years in about 4 or 5 months, something like that. I was infantry, then I was artillery. So always doing the knuckle dragging stuff. But what got me into this world of Lean and Six Sigma and stuff was, so I was enlisted and then I got my bachelor's degree at the University of Texas. That doesn't help me much, but fast forward, and then I'm at Naval Postgraduate School. They sent me there because apparently I had just slightly enough intellect to make it into that school. And I got in, and in there in an operations class, I learned about this Lean Six Sigma stuff, but it only was just, I heard about it in passing. It was part of the curriculum. You learned essentially the Greenbelt curriculum as part of the class. And I didn't think much of it from there, but it made sense to me. The stuff they were talking about really started to make sense. And then fast forward to after I graduated Naval Postgraduate School, and I was a captain about to pick up major at Marine Corps Systems Command in my final tour, in my twilight tour. So those of you non-military folks, means I was getting ready to retire. I had an opportunity to go to a black belt course because I already had the training for green belt in my curriculum. And I went to it not thinking much of it again, but there was something in there that drew me to it. It made sense on how you can solve these problems. And it's like, really, things are that easy if we just structure a way of thinking through them. And I just couldn't believe that this structured problem solving methodology allowed us to take these complex problems and break them down into something my little pea-sized brain could figure out. And so for something like that, for me, it was like mind blowing. And so that is the story of where I ran into Lean and Six Sigma. As a matter of fact, I set up a program office, if you will. It's a loose term, but we were supposed to have a continuous improvement office with a focus on Lean and Six Sigma. That was a requirement, a mandate from the Department of Defense. Marine Corps Systems Command at the time did not have one. I knew they were supposed to have one. I took on the crazy role over a few years of developing and implementing one, which meant everything from training people to establishing the program office or project office, excuse me. And that's actually what got me those fun little letters of DR, the doctor, because that was the action research project that my college at the time let me use. So I got to use that experience, and that's what earned me my doctorate in business, was developing that office. And then
What year was that? Are you talking about mid to late 2000s?
No, actually, so this time frame where they didn't have a continuous improvement office was 2013 to 18 time frame. When the mandate originally came out, it went away. And then all of a sudden, by the time I got there, it wasn't in existence. There was nothing there. I mean, they will say did away with it, but they were supposed to have one. And so I got just enough support from from a few influential leaders who said, okay, if you're going to do it, but let me just tell you, the general's not going to be too thrilled about it. And it was true. So I fought an uphill battle, learned a lot about how to communicate and a grassroots effort. But that's essentially what got me my doctorate. And then obviously now I have a business around that. But the nonprofit, so the for-profit actually leads us to the nonprofit. That's where it all started from, because in all reality, our hearts were to give back from the beginning. I was a retired Marine. I knew since 2009 that God put it on my heart that we were going to open a drug and alcohol rehab center for veterans and first responders. I knew that. Well, the business was actually secondary. We were like, okay, how are we going to make money for this said nonprofit? And bing, there it is. So we used the skills that we were given in that department, because I'm a master black belt. And then my wife's a couple of years behind me. But when I learned black belt stuff, I dragged her along reluctantly. Now she loves it, but I reluctantly dragged her along. And now she's a master black belt as well. And obviously, so is the rest of our staff. But yeah, so then that allowed us to have the money to purchase the home so that we can actually have the drug and alcohol rehab center. So I'll pause right there.
Tell me a little bit more about why you chose that, or why you felt inspired to start that. What was the inspiration? And then, yeah, walk us through how you got that going and what was some of the early struggles and successes you had?
So I'll give you some of the inspiration from it. A couple of pieces, obviously very close to home. One is I was an alcoholic, blackout drunk, and in the Marine Corps, love my brothers and sisters in service, but we tend to promote that and say it's a good thing. And hey, it's okay, drink, do what you want. I got it. I was a blackout drunk, getting in fights all the time, literally like going to bars, and my knuckles are nice and scarred up from fighting, right? So the point was I loved to drink. I was to say I was done with that part of my life, but also I didn't have some of the stressors, even though I'd been to combat and stuff. I didn't deal with the PTSD aspect of it, but my brother did. So my brother, who was also a Marine, he was in the storm when they stormed Baghdad in the very beginning. When they toppled the statue of Saddam, the tow tank would actually belong to him that actually pulled that statue down, that really
Oh,
famous
wow.
picture.
Yeah.
So long story short, my brother is a fireman right now, currently, and still struggles with PTSD really bad. And how do you medicate that? We all know how we medicate that. And it inspired me, if you will, to do something about it and say, God gave me the resources, and he's, what are you going to do with it? And that's where we are.
Very cool. And so tell me about this house. What was you feel like that was a solution you came up with or has been effective at getting people to go through this and have a lot of oversight and support during a critical time period? Is that how the house works?
Yeah, so the house came about in a very odd. We didn't think of a sober home. That like never crossed our mind in the
Okay.
beginning of any of this. But through conversations, prayer, leading, guiding, we ended up at the sober home idea. And what that allowed us to do, our sober home is run a little bit different than some of the other ones where people just go in there, they live a sober life and move on. We actually provide accountability and discipline in that place. And so we have somebody that lives there to help them manage their day to day, not like a boss and over the top of you and do your chores, kids. No, hey, let's wake up at a certain time. Let's journal at a certain time. Let's make sure we're going to the meetings for Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, these other things that can help us in our journey. Sarah provides, she's a counselor as well. She got her master's degree and all that stuff. And so what she does is she helps to rebuild those bridges back to the families, whether it's children, husbands, wives. There's a lot of bridges that have been burnt in this time. So we have this really holistic view of it, not just where I get in and get dirty with the men and the council and we take them out hiking and we love on them and we get them back on their feet, try to get them jobs, get them purpose, get them upskilled, reskilled. She works on the family piece and we try to collectively work on building that bridge together. So our sober home is not like a lot of them where it's like, hey, it's a home that's available for you to live and we're sober. No, actually, we walk with you every step of the journey. We roll up our sleeves, we get really, we'll say, ugly and dirty, and we love it. Every step of it. A lot of tears, a lot of hugging, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, but such is life, right? I mean, that's it is what it is. You got to realize these men and women have been trained to, I'll try to be as politically correct as I can. They're warriors, right? They show no pain, show no fear. If they go on the battlefield, they're police and they're out in the end, could be shot at, high speed chase, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to go home and be loving husbands and wives and fathers and mothers. And I will tell you from experience, that is an extremely difficult thing to do. And we try to help, again, we just help people get back on their feet and restore those relationships, find themselves, so to speak.
Yeah, I can imagine how challenging that is. And yeah, that kind of switch, turning a switch on and off to go back and forth and readjusting back into civilian life, or just even coming home, like you said, at the end of the day and saying, now I'm no longer a policeman, I have to be a father.
Yes.
And that's definitely a challenge.
Yes, it is. And so those pressures obviously boil over. And so again, that house is, we've had folks come in there that, as a matter of fact, weren't even struggling with drugs and alcohol. They were struggling with their marriage. And so that's okay. You don't have to be addicted to alcohol or drugs, but going through that issue, and he was a retired cop and having a lot of issues. And so we try to help build those bridges and build back up those relationships, give them tools, techniques, give them everything we can. And so we have equine therapy. So with horses, we have a friend of ours who's a retired military as well. And he started a nonprofit for equine therapy. So that's about 15 minutes from the house. So we use him. And it's called Hopeful Acres in Seguin, Texas. Shameless shout out for Hopeful Acres. But Rick is a fantastic dude, just an awesome dude. And then we have canine therapy because we have Blake, who actually is the house manager, and he is a professional dog trainer. Like he did it, like these guys do this professionally. Before being here, Blake, as a matter of fact, was in Washington, D.C., and these guys do drugs and bombs and these things for like checking buildings, like government buildings in downtown DC. And so, yeah, these guys are professional trainers. We have dogs, horses. Sarah does the female humans. I do the male humans. And with collectively, like I said, collectively, it's holistic.
Where do you find the time to, provide consulting work to raise funds and then also help out? It must be pretty long days or long weeks, or you're just driven to do that?
Drive is a big part of it, but even more so is it's the team you choose, because we all know each other's lanes. And if you stay, like for instance, if I stay out of Sarah's lane and let her do her thing, and I stay out of Blake's lane and let him do his thing, right? And we all respect each other's lanes, guess what? That minimizes the work you're actually having to do. So if you structure your time, are you putting in a lot of extra hours? Yes, but I'm not belittling what we do as master black belts. Shoot, what we do in working with data and stuff, very difficult. But I'll tell you, that's a lot easier than the human aspect of running a sober home. A lot of time gets spent on the people side of it, which by the way, for sure bleeds over into the master black belt side. You deal with humans and the change aspect all the time. There's literally a direct link. What I learned over here in the sober home is directly applicable over here. And then also we can use the master black belt work where I try to let them come across too. Some people have we'll say G2, the intellect, you just know that they have it. You can also train them in green belt, black belt, right? You can upskill and reskill them. And some people want to learn dog training and stuff. Blake can train them in that. So again, we give them skills and techniques. Going a little off track with the question, but everything we try to do is make it so there's not silos. Everything goes together. And if that happens, you don't feel like one starts, one stops. Oh, my workday starts now, I'm with the people. No, they literally blend and bleed beautifully together. So they make this nice, kind of like Lean and Six Sigma, right? They're harmonious. They're different, but they work together in harmony, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I've always felt like that's a great thing to teach people who are looking for work and just ramping up their skill set. They're out of work. And here's an opportunity to take someone who has time, and if we can connect them with a nonprofit or some group that they can practice their skills while they're looking for work and boost their resume, and then they have a project, and then they have a connection to an organization. I think there's some really cool things that sounds like you're already doing that work. So that's really exciting and cool to hear about.
One of the things I write this on the marker board in that house, and it just came to me one day. I said, there's nothing more dangerous than a man without a purpose. Because after enough folks started to come in there, and I realized, because from the beginning, when you start out, you're so naive to what you don't know. I realized case after case that like one word just kept coming back. I don't have my purpose. I lost my purpose. When you lose your purpose, like that's the first thing we got to find, right? What is your purpose? Why are you here? And this isn't some existential question. I got to sit like a yogi under the sun and meditate for 6 hours. It's like, where do people want to intrinsically, we want to add value to society and our lives and the people around us, right? So how do we do that? When you've lost it, I was in the Marine Corps. That's where I was adding value. I was a paycheck. I was a hero to my kids and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm out. Now I'm a nobody. No, you're not. You just have a different purpose now. Your purpose is different. You're still a father. You're still a husband. You're still a loving human being who deserves love and compassion and empathy. But you do need to find where we're going to add value. Where is that? And so that's one of the first things that we have to explore is how do we add value? What does that look like? So everybody's different. Obviously, that you and I are very different. We add value in different ways, right? To people's lives. But that I will tell you, if there's one word that this all boils down to, it's purpose. That's where all of it comes from. I've lost my purpose.
How do you help someone figure that out? Is it just through dialogue, or is there exercises you can do? Because I knew a lot of friends, and I played college football, and a lot of them went professional, and then that time's over, and that's the similar thing, not maybe to the extreme, but they're like, now what do I do? I'm not getting the same limelight or my whole life has been around football and now that's gone, who am I? And so I think that's probably a challenge a lot of people face, and don't have to be in the military or professional athlete to go through that.
So one of the keys that we had found, journaling is huge. And as dudes, a lot of times we'd say, I don't like to do that or whatever. And so one of the first things that they get when they check in is a journal. And so they get this journal. You journal when you're mad, when you're had, and we start to look for these triggers and talk through them. So it's a combination of the journaling and the dialogue, because then we will do, like, we do disc golf together. We go on hikes together in groups, and we talk while we're doing them. Because guys, we don't like to stare each other in the eyeballs like girls. We like to be walking and talking. You know what I mean? That's okay. I can talk to you when we're shoulder to shoulder, but not eyeball to eyeball. It's weird. Don't talk to me. But so we take opportunities like that and we talk, and then we get to explore a group together and we build trust and we can share. Then when we're doing our individual times together, then we can talk a little deeper into the purpose. So that journaling is a really big one. The group one helps people to understand they're not alone in that struggle for purpose. And then it finally leads to, in the individual times, to go, okay, let's work through me specifically and how I find my purpose. So journaling, group, individual. And so all of that collectively helps people to identify or get to the point where we can talk about, where do you add value? Where do you want to add value? And it's a typical intersection. You and I know it. It's pretty cliche for everybody. It's like, okay, what are your passions and your purpose and what do you love to do? And right. And then there's that confluence of, and then making money, of course, people want to add value that way. So where's that? Where do the Venn diagram overlap? And it's okay, let's try to find something in there. And then let's pursue. And so because our background is so entrepreneurial, we've also helped people. Many of them will be like, oh, I can't find a job. I can't find a job. And I always say, let's go make one. Like, for instance, one guy was one of our first guys was like, I got hired at Home Depot, but it's just not fulfilling, because he was a real handyman. That's where he really felt, because he had ADHD and all this other stuff. And so, like, he just working with his hands, he had to do. Guess what? Fast forward to about, I want to say close to exactly a year ago now, we helped him to launch his own business with a handyman. And guess what? Now he's hiring people and stuff, and he's growing and expanding and like blowing up. And I'm like, see, go find a job. I even told him, I said, go knock on the neighbor's house over there. Ask them if you can do their leaves. Ask them if you can fix their roof. Ask them if you can do whatever. He started doing it, taking off. It's that entrepreneurial spirit too. So if you have you want to go that direction, we also help them be like, make it happen. This world is all about small business nowadays. So I'm like, make it happen. Put it that way.
That's great. Yeah. And probably just even the confidence to say, you can do this, or let's guide you, help you through this, where they might be overwhelmed or not even know where to start, or even can't even imagine, I can't own a business. That's just not me, or that's just something I've never been. I'm not that type of person. And you can get them through that hurdle to say, yes, you can. There's a lot of people who run great businesses. They don't have to be like, come up with a brand new idea. There's tons of just core businesses that still can be successful.
Yeah, this boils down to part of the conversation too, because some people want to start businesses and others may just want to create your own job, right? Again, you and I know that difference. And you're like, you just may want to be yourself and somebody else doing it. Cool. All it is just some paperwork. File it. Make sure your file is an LLC or whatever it is, or a sole proprietor, whatever, however you're going to structure this thing. We'll work through it, help you file it, and get it rocking and rolling, and be like, there you go. Now you can kind of legally transact. Oh, you want to do this? Well, make sure you get your general contractor license. It's $400. Okay, tell you what, you going to pass that test? Yes, I'll give you $400, but you better pass the test. Let's go do it. So
take away excuses. Yeah.
The whole thing, that's one of the phrases they know from me as well. Ditch the excuses. I say that a lot. Ditch them. I don't want to hear any of them, because anything that you're going to say, I'm going to say, you want it, you go get it. That's the whole thing. You want it, go get it. I don't know where. Good. Now that's true. You probably don't know where to start. That's where you get a good mentor. And that's where hopefully we can come in. But I'm like, but excuses, nope. Ditch them. Leave them at the door. Because no matter what you want to do, we'll find a way. We'll figure it out.
How about the Lean and Six Sigma methods? Is that something you've been able to incorporate into the nonprofit work? Do they practice some 5S, or do they do any kind of mapping exercises or data analysis, anything like that?
All the above. Now, we do a lot with 5S, for instance, because when you're living in a community structured home, things have to be 5S. Like literally every day, things have to be in a certain spot. Like we have QR codes for basically everything. And I give them like this metal business card. It's got 6 QR codes. One of them's like the chore list. Everything's laid out, pictures, literally 5S down to On Wednesdays, you wipe even the windowsills this way. And it's structured around no more than 30 minutes in chores per day. Everything has to go, everything in its place, or everything has a place, everything in its place, right? Typical 5S. And so we use 5S is quite literally what drives that place. Without 5S, that place would fall apart. Even down to when we get a new person coming in, there is a literal standard operating procedure checklist, boom. And it sits here, goes this way, goes that way. And everything is structured. That way they know what to expect. Because think about, again, the mindset. This goes for business and nonprofit. The mindset of what drove the chaos to begin with is the lack of structure and accountability and discipline, right? And so 5S is like the primo thing that brings everything back into providing that structure and accountability. There it is, there it goes, there's where it belongs. Good, I'm at peace. I know exactly where this thing is at, where it's supposed to be when I'm done with it, where it goes when, Yeah. So 5S is big. And then working with data, that's how we teach them to track. So now you're getting into the good part about when you go from journaling, we teach them to take that journaling, turn it into really good, useful data. And how do we assess that data? How do we look for trends and patterns? Sound familiar? Yep, that's exactly what we do. Trends, patterns, right? Look at your control charts. But essentially, so when we do this, we're teaching them to look for data in their own lives. And how do they use that data? What are we as master black belts? We're storytellers, we're interpreters, we're translators, right? We take data like that, what they're doing in their journaling, we turn it into something useful so decisions can be made. Is that any different than journaling to finding my purpose? No, it's not. It's a direct one-for-one translation. It is literally what we do. And all of that came from thinking through the DMAIC process. Think about the process that they're walking through as somebody who's, could be marriage, could be drugs, alcohol, whatever. You got to define that problem. You have to figure out what's the baseline of this thing, analyze the root causes, improve our process, our life, and then control, sustain, make sure we don't go back and revert to our old ways, build on past successes. Are you kidding me? It's just DMAIC to your life. Yeah. That's literally what you do. So DMAIC, that's why I jokingly tell people, let's just say I'm doing a green belt course, like with what's going on right now. I go, I can challenge you that if you think of DMAIC as not a checklist, but a mental model, it can solve any problem, anywhere, anytime. So find me a problem, I'll use DMAIC and we'll solve it. Because it's not a checklist of tools.
I think that's very similar to me. It's once you see these tools and you're like, I can't imagine a problem I can't solve, I can't figure out. There's enough tools out here that if we methodically walk through these steps, we are going to get something out of this and figure some way of solving this. It doesn't, it's almost like it takes away these ideas of impossible problems or too challenging and I don't know how we're going to do this, or I'm afraid to even go after this problem because I just feel confident now that there is a methodical way to follow and get to some kind of improvement there. So yeah, I think it just really builds people's confidence in the ability to go tackle almost any problem.
If you understand that, if you understand the kind of the mental model, there's not a challenge that you can't think through. And it also lets you, again, forgive the cliche, but eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? Because you're like, where do I start? Where does any problem start or any 12-step define the problem? What's the problem? I'm an alcoholic. Okay, own it. Good. Now the measure is I drink this. I'm baseline in this. Yep. And here's the things that are ruined in my life because of it. This is all that. Okay, good. Now what's the root cause of it? This is probably the toughest part, which again, This is your hypothesis testing. It's where I got to get out my chi-square, my ANOVA, my whatever it is that I'm going to run here. And then I can run through all my list of hypothesis tests. Well, that's the same thing. I'm digging to the root causes. I'm using my fishbone. I'm using my 5 whys. Why? Let's get down to it. Why does this happen? When you do that, then I can say, I've identified those. Now I can make the improvements. So that's, again, it's, if you really understand DMAIC, if you really truly understand it, and you haven't, we'll say, screwed it up to the point where you're like, it's this list of tools and that's how you do DMAIC. You don't just do DMAIC. It's a process. It's a thought process.
Let me pause for a moment to tell you about our sponsor. Creative Safety Supply is a great resource for free guides, infographics, and continuous improvement tools. I recommend starting with their 5S guide. It includes breakdowns of the 5 pillars, ways to begin implementing 5S, and even organization tips and color charts. From red tags to floor markings, it's all there. Download it for free at creativesafetysupply.com/5. I use that now as someone's telling me a story. I'd be just like, what's the problem and how bad is it? And do they really understand why it's happening? It is an approach to even organize someone coming out and just spouting off a bunch of stuff. And you're just like, okay, I think that's a little bit of improve. I heard some analyze in there. I think I heard a definition of a problem. I'm piecing it in my head. Okay, wait,
Yep.
I didn't hear any measures. There's my gap. I got to go start asking questions. How bad is this? And how many times did you say this happened? And so, yeah, it's a great tool for even trying to get a handle around lots of information and just reorganize it to say, all right, here's where we're missing something, or we got to back up because you skipped way ahead to improve and I didn't hear the problem yet. And so I agree. It's a really powerful tool.
Again, considering this is about nonprofits and lean Six Sigma for good, let's think about this. People, they're going to go into a sober home and they're just going to be like, all right, I'm going to jump into just not drinking and that's it. And I'm going to move into this house. And you're like, hold on, do we even have a true grasp of the problem yet? Do we really understand what it is? Let's mentally charter this sucker up, right? What's the scope of what we're dealing with here? And it's true. Like you said, you're hearing pieces of it. You got to get them to step back and you go, okay, but if you teach them and empower them and say, this is the framework from which I'm coming from here, and oddly enough, this is a quote unquote business framework we got. But in all reality, it's not. It's just this mental model. It's so much bigger than that. It just frustrates me because some people have just squirreled it up so much that they think it's this tool and this tool and this tool. I'm like, I don't know who taught you that, but no, it's not at all. Those tools help me as I'm trying to, if I'm defining a problem, the tool's there to help me to define it. It's going to help me with, it's a supplement.
Yes.
That's all it is. That's what it's there for. It's not there to be the phase or whatever, or to define the problem. It's a way for me to capture the thought process. But yeah, I think we got to get off target with what we've done with it, but you can use it in a nonprofit world. And that's another one too, is a lot of nonprofits, they think, like I deal in the nonprofit world all the time. And when you talk to them about like process improvement, they always think, oh, that's for the businesses, like the real businesses making a lot of money. And you're like, whoa, as a matter of fact, wouldn't you rather, since you have a tight budget, you're asking for money, getting donations, all this other stuff, wouldn't you rather be more efficient with the few resources you do have? Seems like you would be the better candidate for working with DMAIC and doing some lean operations here than, I don't know, a big like Chase Bank would be, because they've got billions of dollars to blow. You have a budget of 200 grand a year and you're constantly going month to month on this. I'm like, maybe it'd be really helpful if you thought through how to lean out your operations. So what would be nice is if people like you and I were able to get in with some of these nonprofits and help them out, and they just get them to see there's so much more you could do with the resources you've already got. Wouldn't that be cool if we could do that?
Yeah, that'd be incredible. I think there is so much opportunity, and it is a new topic concept for a lot of them. They don't necessarily come in with that background or have been introduced to those topics. So yeah, I think that was the goal, is to try to at least get them introduced or thinking about it or learning or wanting to learn more about it. Because I think, yeah, the impact that could be had if they could embrace and look at some of these methods, I think would be huge for our society. Yep.
Yeah. When I saw the premise of your show, even with that, the Lean Six Sigma for Good thing, I'm like, what does that mean? Interesting. And then as I'm doing the research on it, I'm like, that's really cool. Like, what a concept. Like, how do you pull the good out of this? Literally, you got people with big hearts and no brain, and no business brain is what I meant. Yeah, that came out wrong. Big heart, but the business brain's lacking. And you're like, if you can help them to tie that together, you're like, we can make your big heart go even further, right? Because unfortunately, the world of nonprofits, for instance, revolves around what? Money. That makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And it does. Let's be honest. I'm in that. So I'm in the business world. So it doesn't make me uncomfortable, but there's a lot of people that run these nonprofits and they're just like, I don't like to talk about money or having to get, and you're like it or not, how do you think everything happens in the world? Right. Unfortunately, you got to have money, so you have to know how to be resourceful with your money. You need to know how to use it effectively, make your budget stretch further, right? And so how do you do that? You're literally describing like the world of lean, like running efficient, smooth operations, right? You
Yep.
want to be fast, efficient, need a little variation, high quality, right? All those types of things in your Lean Six Sigma world there. And you're like, so there's so much valuable work that could go into these nonprofits, but they separate and they go, nonprofit is different from business. And you're like, I hate to say it, they're not. It is a business. It's just a different classification of a business. That's all it is. Even at church, when people are like, that's another big one too, because we've worked with some churches and you're like it or not, your church is like, it's a business. It has money that comes in. You have to do things with those resources. You pay employees and work is done. I'm sorry, what is that? That's a business, right? Like literally,
Yep.
that's a business. I'm like, I get it. I get it. And I come from that background because my wife and I are both pastors too. So I'm like, I understand that, fellow pastor, but you have to understand that there are business aspects to it. So again, people in the nonprofit world, they try to separate or silo those two, and they're not separable. And when you do separate them, that's where we run into some problems, unfortunately, like maintaining funds and everything and getting the most out of, you're here to help people. I could help you help more people.
And so I think that's a nice segue into governments and government agencies. I know
Mm-hmm.
you've done a lot of work there. Very similar, I think, in a nonprofit, maybe is we have this tax revenue coming in and we're trying to maximize it, the use of that money for maximum benefits to the society and taxpayers and residents. And so tell us a little bit about that background and experience you have, and what are some of the things you're seeing that's working well in the government sector?
Yeah. So funny thing is, Doge being the word that's gone around, or the phrase, what do you want to call it? Doge, and then the tariffs, the two, but Doge is more important. What's funny is this was actually written before
Mm.
Doge, but it is quite literally the answer for Doge. It was so weird because when Doge came out and they were talking about it, my co-author and I were like, you have got to be kidding me, because that is quite literally us addressing Doge. It was pretty wild. But so with the taxpayer dollars, it's like we have these government organizations who have lost trust, right? They've lost trust. Well, why have they lost a lot of the trust? They've lost the trust because of transparency. Why have they lost the transparency? I'm going to argue not because they're bad people. I know that's all over the news, and we try to spread that. Oh, this agency spent $1 million on this corporate party, and this was so horrible. You're like, yeah, but was it? Like, if you were in that organization, maybe if it was really for a celebration and what was going on, was it overkill? Sure. But my point is this: what we've got to understand when we're working with things like government is like we need transparency and communication with the people. Then that $1 million for that party might not seem like such a bad thing. It seemed like such a bad thing because it was the way that it was presented or brought up, almost busted, when you're like,
Mm. Yeah.
no, we meant to have a party and it was the annual event for all of our employees. I'm just saying that could be an example of where we misconstrue these things. But what I've noticed is with these organizations right now is they have to start to become more transparent. That means we've got to have these processes ironed out, mapped out. Why do we map? Visual, right? So you can see okay, what's the process of this thing that we're looking at? Let's map these processes out. Let's let the people see the process, that we're doing it in real time. Let's let them see into some of the financials, because they own the financials. They're the taxpayers, it's their money, right? So why don't we just open up with that, and let's identify and work with the American people to say, what are the true KPIs here, or OKRs, whatever you're going to use. But if you're using like your key performance indicators, okay, American public with government, this is your taxpayer money. We want to be transparent. We're going to map these processes. You can see what they look like. You can see the budgets that we have. Now, what's important? What are the key metrics that we should be getting out? If I'm Department of Education, these are the key metrics, right? American public, do we agree with these? If these are what they should be, and here's why, and they're listed out, I think that's a big piece of what we're really missing. That transparency, that level of transparency. I know it'll never happen at that level. I got it. I understand that. But I think even if we got to the point where we really understood, if in the government, I say we because we work a lot with the government, if we really even understood our own processes, because let's be honest, most people top to bottom in the government, they turn over so fast. Most people don't actually know what the processes are. We just do. And I'm going to be honest with you, because you said, what have I observed? Just do is what I've observed. People just do things. They're like, how do I move this from here to here? There's no procedure necessarily. I just do it.
Mm.
And I'll find a way, and it's going to be different every single time. And so that's what I've noticed. I've noticed the transparency, the lack of understanding, because there's not clarity or alignment. The word we use is alignment. People, processes, technology, data, and leadership in alignment, right? Those things need to be all lined up, and we just don't have it. And so every day the government just does. I know it's a very generic way to say it. That's not in the book that way, but they just do. Let's just get it done.
What's the title of the book?
Revolutionize Work, a guide to enterprise transformation. And like I said, we had no idea that DOGE was coming. And this isn't like a government book, it's for any organization, but it just happens to address a lot of the stuff that comes with DOGE. With the government right now, I think they could make such good strides for Lean Six Sigma for good if they just use some of the concepts that we preach, which is visual workplace, right? Make things visual. Let's just use like visual controls, visual workplace. Imagine if the American people could even see 25% of what's going on in the government, how much better they would feel about it if we just made things visual. That's straight up right. None of that. That's straight up out of our world as master black belts. We try to visualize everything, right? Imagine if we did that. Just put together a visual workplace. What if we put together a dashboard for the Department of Education, a dashboard for, I don't know, whatever, Department of Energy, whatever, right? What if we just like dashboards here, here's what the budget is in, here's the KPIs, here's how we're performing according to them. And there's only 5 KPIs, not 1,000 to confuse everybody, which we normally see, right? So just simple things like that. And that would take leadership leading that effort. So when we say people, process, technology, data, leadership, starts with the leadership, works its way down, leadership, then people, then down into processes are in alignment with what we've designed as being the key performance indicators, right? So people, process, then the data that's fueling that. So all these things, people, process, technology, what technology can we use to automate these things, to supplement humans, not keep firing everybody, right? We don't need to go in and just chop off every branch and be like, hey, every leaf on the tree needs to go away. Time out. Let's go back to what automation with the old Toyota way of it. This is how does it supplement the human? Not like how does it replace the human? Then let's supplement the human. Let's go back to AI being my helper, not my replacement. And if we can get to that, I think the American people would be a lot more, we'll say, not nicer in response to what's going on. But again, that's a lot of words.
Yeah, I think the other thing that could benefit is that once that infrastructure is put in place, the next official comes in, the next election cycle, you can build off that or tweak it or modify it. You don't have to start over. And you can really see the bigger picture. And I think there's a lot more agreement at the higher level, those key metrics, key initiatives. I don't think that would change that much. And maybe just how we roll it out or what our approach might be might differ a little bit, but that infrastructure I think could really hold up over different terms and cycles and things like that, where then the next group can come in and tweak it and make changes and then see how that's working. If it's working better, not as well, and make adjustments instead of throw away the old stuff and start new. And then that takes time to get going. Yeah, I think that infrastructure could be really powerful to continue or tweak whatever was being done before and shift it without, dismantling it.
What's the phrase we know? Shift happens, right? And again, back to our using Lean and Six Sigma in the world we come from. Shift happens. We know it. And like you said, election cycles, shift happens. It's okay. If you've built a Six Sigma quality level, there's what shift can happen and you're going to be okay. You're still in the parameters. So if you think much bigger scope, you're still in the taxpayer spec limits, right? So you're just going to shift here and here, but you're still in those spec limits. And that's what really matters, like what you're saying there. And if you built a robust design like that, but I'm going to go back to the word transparency, because you have to have buy-in from the people. Buy-in is going to come from when they have a general understanding of it. Not everybody's going to understand. I get it. You could literally show every transparent penny and still people, aren't going to understand. And not everybody's going to understand everything. But you do have to have a government that is accountable, transparent, and they really are better. I'll even say this too, better at communicating what they're doing, because they may already be doing a bunch of this stuff. Like you said, there's a lot of infrastructure that's there, but we don't know that. I work in the government, I get it. But generically speaking, a lot of people don't know that infrastructure is there and just, oh, the government's so jacked up. And you're like, okay, if they just communicated with you, you'd actually realize that about 80% of the stuff you already need or are complaining about is already there, to be honest with you. It's just they haven't told you that. And all they keep exposing, because the media does what the media does, is showing you all the negative stuff. There's a lot of good stuff under the hood too, right? A lot of good things that happen. Now, I'm not pro big government, of course, but what I'm saying though is if they communicated with us and if they were transparent with us, but beating that dead horse at this point, this kind of helps a little bit with that. With that book is talking about the alignment of the key pieces. And that really would transforming work's not about transforming the way we do work like every day. It's actually taking most of the stuff you already have and just putting everything into a nice alignment. It's not saying, oh, you got to go do work a completely different way. No, revolutionize doesn't mean you need to reinvent. That's not what revolutionized work is about. It's not reinventing your work. It's revolutionizing it, which means put everything into alignment, take the pieces that are probably already there, and you're probably only missing maybe one or two puzzle pieces out of the whole puzzle, right? You're not going to get a whole new puzzle, laying out the pieces and rebuilding it. No, it's like you've already got the frame, you got a bunch of pieces, and you just got to put the pieces of the puzzle together and then see where there's a gap here or there. And then the alignment comes to play. But that's more revolutionized work, for-profit, nonprofit, government. It's not about reinvent. It's about revolutionize. Very different.
I think we could continue for another hour if you'd like, but I really appreciate your time. Tell us about the organization. How can they learn more?
The easiest way to start would be to either hit up one of our team members' LinkedIn's, because then you'll see everything right on it. That's the quickest way. But fullarmorranch.org. Fullarmorranch.org is where the house is at. And like I said, just because we say drug and alcohol rehab center for veterans, first responders, marriage, you name it, anything. But that's fullarmorranch.org, and there's all the information you would need about the 501c3 is there. But then for the actual consulting and the training and stuff like that is on that's on va616.com, because the name of the company is Value Added 616. And so Value Added 616, I'll throw this out there real fast. So for my fellow nerds, you should understand this. So there's two reasons for the 616. One is it's the area code when we started, okay, in Michigan. Second, for my Marvel fans, it is planet Earth. When Captain Marvel is speaking, she says, I'm on planet 616. So for my Marvel friends, it's value added for the whole Earth. But there you go. But so VA 616 is where you get like the for-profit stuff. And that's where we do the training, coaching, consulting, the projects we work on, all that type of stuff. And the books on revolutionized work is on Amazon and Goodreads and everything else. But again, fullarmorranch.org for this show specifically. If you have anybody who you think needs assistance, needs help, needs encouragement, if it's you or somebody you know or love, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you. If there's anything we can do to serve you, we will go above and beyond to just help you restore every aspect of your life, to get purpose back into what you do. So we want to help you add value to the lives of those around you and the people you love. So that's fullarmorranch.org.
That's awesome. And where is the ranch located? In Texas or?
It's in Seguin, Texas.
Where's that?
It's about 35 minutes outside of San Antonio and about like maybe an hour and 15 or so-ish out of Austin. And then I'm in New Braunfels, Texas, and it's about 40 minutes from here. So it's like in this triangulated area between New Braunfels, San Antonio, and Austin. We'll put it, everything's less than 90 minutes away from that whole zone. Anything you can think of in that whole area of Texas.
Nice. Yeah, and we'll link up to all that in the notes and put in your LinkedIn profile. Is that the best way for people to get a hold of you?
It is, unless you just want to reach out to lucas.chesla at valueadded616.com or Sarah with an H. Chesla at valueadded616.com, or like I said, LinkedIn is nice and easy. Just hit us up there. We check it every day. So yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Very inspiring. It's awesome what you're doing, and keep up the great work. And yeah, hopefully some others will be inspired to look in it for their nonprofit, or maybe they work in a government agency and said, we should probably check this out a little bit more, or in their personal life. I think you really, help people see that this can be applied anywhere, and any problems you're dealing with, relationship problems, think about it in that framework. I personally can attest to that too, that it does help. If you can work through what is the problem and what is the root cause, it really does help you think through some of these really challenging things, even if it's not related to business.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Anything. You can use this. But thank you for having me on. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. It was great getting to know you. And
you
again, I
too.
genuinely appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you like this topic, please check out the Lean Six Sigma for Good book series with the subtitle Lessons from La Gemba. We now have both Volume 1 and Volume 2 in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. Each volume has 8 chapters written by different Lean Six Sigma practitioners who have applied their skills to nonprofits, NGOs, not-for-profit organizations, and government agencies. Proceeds from the book sales are split evenly and go to the nonprofit selected by each author. Go to lean6sigmaforgood.com or search Amazon for Lean Six Sigma for Good. These books make a great gift for your process improvement team or someone you know who works at a not-for-profit organization.